He wanted to learn to fly but not take off and land. I have never seen such a unusual person seeking flight instruction.
Colin Rowley
immediately informed her superiors in Washington, but nothing happened. Their investigations were obstructed.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of that would indicate this type of operation in the country.
I wrote a memo in May of 2002, 13-page memo, is the Joint Intelligence Committee report. And both of those were, I hope, basically what my memo did was expose that this was not true, that 9/11 could not have been prevented. The FBI's acting director, a guy by the name of Picard, during the summer of 9/11, he attempted to brief Attorney General Ashcroft about terrorism a couple of times. And the first time, Ashcroft showed little interest in terrorism. In fact, Ashcroft ended up ranking terrorism as his lowest priority in August of 2001. At one point, Picard was told by Ashcroft, "I don't want to hear any more about terrorism."
After September 11, 2001, when I heard about the planes crashing into the World Trade Towers and into the Pentagon, I said, geez, these were the same people, according to the Los Angeles Times, who had gotten their visas from the American Consul General at Jeddah. I called the Federal Bureau of Investigation and tell them essentially the basics of the visas for terrorist program. I did this. I called and I called and I called. I was passed from one office of the FBI to another and ended up at the Washington field office, and someone there said, "We'll get back to you." Well, 6 years later, I'm still waiting.
We received these audio tapes that were obtained 3 months before September 11, 2001 from a different field office, Iranian informant who'd been on FBI's payroll for 10 years, since about 1991, 1992, in April 2001. And in April 2001, this informant told the FBI that on a separate issue, he had obtained information about Al-Qaeda bin Laden issuing an attack in the United States that would involve 5 major cities, and it will involve airplanes, and that the attack was going to take place within the next few months. They took the information, they found it important, they filled out forms, they came back to the headquarters, and then they filed it. They gave it to the superiors, right? Nothing happened. 2 months later, they met with the same informant again. And the informant asked, he said, "Did you do something with that information I gave you, because it came from really reliable sources?" And the agent said, "Yes, we gave it to our superiors." Well, nothing happened. Nobody followed up on this.
They discovered Ramzi Yousef's computer with the Bojinka plan in 1996 in the Philippines. It talked about taking hijacked planes and running them into the Pentagon, the White House, the Capitol, the CIA headquarters, and the Twin Towers. The Pentagon staged an exercise a year before, in October of 2000, at the site with the Arlington County Fire Department to simulate a plane running into the Pentagon and how the fire responders would get there and what they would do. So this was not outside the box or, out in the blue. They not only expected it, they prepared for it.
One of the most frequent declarations made by the Bush administration was that these attacks took us by surprise.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings on such a massive scale.
Secondo USA Today, dal 1999.
According to USA Today, in 1999, the American Air Force conducted special exercises 4 times per year in which the hijacking of civil aeroplanes by terrorists was simulated.
Di aerei civili.
The selected targets were the Twin Towers and the Pentagon.
I don't think anybody could have
the prior
predicted.
government that could envision flying airplanes in the buildings.
Could have predicted.
I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes in the buildings.
On the 11th of September 2002, the New York Times wrote, "1 year later, the public knows less about the circumstances of 2,801 deaths at the foot of Manhattan in broad daylight than people in 1912 knew within weeks about the Titanic."
5 years after that article, what happened that day is still a mystery.
My name is Bob McIlvaine. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I lost my son Bobby, who's age 26, on September 11th, 2001. He had just gotten a job at Merrill Lynch. Already. It always hits you blind. And don't worry, I'll get over it. But I mean, anytime you just mention that day, it's like the pain just comes shooting up. And of course, when you keep doing this, it's just, you think it gets better, but it just never gets better.
The conclusions that the 9/11 Commission came to have been very disappointing. A lot of evidence has been ignored. Many witnesses were not called to testify. The final report glosses over a great many key issues.
A few days before 9/11, Mohammed Atta received a huge sum of money, about $100,000, money which was delivered by a Pakistani Secret Service officer. And the big scandal is that the 9/11 Commission of the US Congress never interrogated this man and never tried to bring light into the story of this 100,000.
While everybody was doing testimony televised to the whole nation, mine was behind closed door. Now, why would they want that behind closed door? That didn't make any sense. Anyway, I told them exactly the same argument that we have here, that we heard explosions, that people were burned, prior the building getting hit by the plane, that these people were alive and they were available to be interrogated. And wow, what a surprise. The final report comes out. They didn't even mention my name, doesn't appear anywhere. They didn't call, not even once, any of the witnesses that we gave them. So you have 17 firefighters, you have 22 survivors, and they didn't call not even one of them.
Specifically me as a parent, I have an obligation to find out who murdered my son. The commission gave me nothing. 9/11 Commission was not an investigation.
Remember, the entire bin Laden family was on one of the planes later. They'd been collected from all over the United States, and they were whisked out of the country with the speed of light while the Pentagon was still burning.
So they asked Mueller, who authorized these people to leave the country? Well, someone in the State Department. Well, can you tell us who? He said, well, I don't recall. I don't recall. Another instance, General Myers, this is later on in the commission. They asked about Moussaoui. Do you recall getting any information?